Good evening, everyone. Welcome and thanks for joining us as the government is all of us, US, and we are the people event. My name is Lynn Troyan, and I'm the CEO and founder of Thrive Consulting. Tonight, I am your moderator, and I'm a mom, grandma, native New Mexican, and a proud and joyous fundraiser who has been able to use those skills toward making a difference in CD2, re-electing Gabe Vasquez as congressman, and creating a generational transformation in voting blue in New Mexico. Tonight, our goal is to raise $25,000. And we've done this before, raising large sums of money to flip districts in 1 hour. And I know we can make it happen tonight. I'm proud to be here with you, our participants, you all, our volunteers who are local, our leadership, and national experts to talk about how language shapes reality and how it can be used to bring us together instead of dividing us. I can use my love of fundraising and asking people for money for the most good and through CD2 New Mexico. We're diving right in with our speakers, and please feel free to go to the Q&A to ask questions, to write out your questions, and they'll be answered or saved for the Q&A period at the end of this hour. Also, feel free to contribute. And Kim will provide the link right now in the chat so that you can contribute often and proudly the way we all do as volunteers. Now I'd like to introduce Rochelle, our intrepid entrepreneurial founder and outgoing co-chair. In Rochelle's life before retirement, she owned a regional construction data publishing company. She holds an MFA in fiction and serves on the board of Otero Arts, where she founded and directs the Otero Arts Reading Series, bringing poets and fiction writers to art-hungry Alamogordo, New Mexico. Rochelle, take it away.
Thank you, Lynn, and thank you all for coming this evening. I'd first like to recognize and thank our sponsors. We'll just leave this slide up for a few moments so you can help us celebrate these generous gifts. We are a group of volunteers who came together in March of 2021 to unseat a MAGA extremist and elect a Democrat to represent us in Congress. We have been laser focused on helping elect Gabe Vasquez in 2022 and helping him hold the seat in 2024. His re-election was the first time since 1978 that a Democrat has won a second term here, so that tells you how red this district was. Trump won it in 2024, so we still have a lot of work to do, and we're so glad you're here to help. We all know our democracy is in serious trouble. Every day we all wake up to news that makes us want to crawl under a rock or leave the country. We believe action is the best antidote to fear and outrage. We learned how to find and engage Democrats who don't regularly vote, and we reach between 15 and 40,000 of them with each of our campaigns. We'll show you some of the results in a moment. We all have to be loud, persistent, and reliable communicators now, pushing back against the terrible lies MAGA floods our airwaves and digital spaces with. We must talk not only about all that is under threat, but also what we value and our vision for a better future. Economic justice, equality under the law, and leaving a habitable planet for our kids and grandkids. So please join us to grow our megaphone and turn those on the sidelines into voters. Let's go to the slide. Here's our beautiful southern New Mexico. Next slide. This is our mission, to keep Gabe in Congress and to support Democrats down ballot. That yellow area is our district. It's very large, about the size of Pennsylvania, and it's very rural. Next slide. This is our strategy. We use all these channels and repeated touches: postcards, social media, billboards, texting, radio. This programmatic advertising is digital ads delivered to physical addresses. They show up on every electronic device associated with an address. The people we're trying to engage are not big news consumers, so we meet them where they are. That could be shopping, browsing, gaming. Our ads will show up wherever they're on an electronic device. All of this drives people to our website. Next slide. This is what our donors helped us do in 2024. 365,000 postcards, 260,000 digital ads, 13 billboards across the district. These are very effective in rural areas. Social media, an influencer, over 300,000 texts, radio in 2 markets the last 2 weeks. This drove 85,000 website views. Next slide. Here's our secret sauce for reaching infrequent voters and motivating them. We use data analytics to find the people we need to touch. We use carefully crafted, nationally tested messaging that we adapt for our district. We use all those channels that I just talked about to reach these non-voters. And repeated touching, we touch them as many times as our budget will allow. Next slide. These are our 2024 campaigns, and I'm going to turn it over to Constance Massells, who is our co-chair and marketing guru, to tell you about them.
Thank you, Rochelle. So in 2024, thanks to the largesse of our donors, we were able to run 4 campaigns. One in spring, which we call the Good News Campaign, aimed at infrequent voters. One during the summer and the fall, voter registration, which were Democratic-leaning unregistered voters. And in the fall, we did a Get Out the Vote back to our first group, the infrequent voters in the spring. And then because we had a little bit of money left over, we went after centrist independents. Next slide. So our website is the center of action. We make sure that it has reliable information and it reflects our values and vision that we share with other people in the district. It's a year-round, localized website that's relevant to our audience. So when you come on the site, on the homepage, you will find this map. And if you were to click on that yellow part and choose a county, it would take you to a specific county, whatever county you were interested in, where you lived. And it would show you information about that county. For example, this is the interactive map tracks all the dollars that came into the district through the ARPA, the Inflation Reduction Act, and the infrastructure bill, and what projects they funded for each county in our district. We then shared that information with the people we plan to ask to vote, showing them that voting matters and how voting Democrats can improve their lives. Next slide. And if you keep drilling down, you will get down to a specific thing for the specific district. So, for example, here we have electric vehicles. The county of Antonia Scatton received money for 12 buses. Next slide. Starting in the spring, we did a good news. Next slide. We did a good news campaign and sent out to 20,000 infrequent voters, 60,000 postcards. That is, we sent each voter 3 different postcards. This is an example of one. And the point, and all of our postcards drive people to our site. Next slide. During that campaign, as I said, we sent out 3 postcards. We also did some other things. And out of that campaign came 5,800 people, 29% of our 20,000 people we contacted visiting this site. That's pretty amazing. Next slide. In the summer, we switched the people we were going after. And instead of talking to registered voters, we talked to voters who needed to register. And we sent out 6 postcards to 15,000 people, which was 90,000 postcards. And when I'm talking about these cards, I'm talking about people behind the scenes who are putting stamps on the cards, who are writing little notes on the cards and sending them off. This is a huge, big project that we run. And in the summer, we had a printing error, so we had an additional 15,000 cards to send out, which we sent to 6,000 additional potential voters. Next slide. When you clicked on our URL, you would come to the website, as I said, and this is a landing page for voter information. Previous slide. We found that the Secretary of State's website simply wasn't adequate. It did not give people really easy information to follow how to get to be a first-time voter. So we created a very, very, very in-depth portion of our site to help people to register. And we found that people were returning to this particular page over and over again during the spring and the summer and the fall. So 29% of the postcard recipients, these are people who never heard of us before, 4,300 people, came to our Register to Vote webpage and then used it over and over again. Next slide. So in the fall, we ran a Get Out the Vote campaign, Go Vote for Gabe, Gabe being our representative. And for that, we went back to our first group of people, the ones we talked to in the spring. So repeatedly touching them, we sent them 3 additional postcards, totaling 90,000 postcards. Next slide. We also did programmatic advertising, and that is the kind of advertising that you might see on your cell phone when you're looking for recipes or looking up what the sports stats are or whatever. And these are digital ads that can be very highly targeted, and so highly targeted that we can use our target audience's physical address, that is their street address, to reach these people. So anybody in a particular household at a particular address will see these ads running when we are advertising to them. They are incredibly effective. Next slide. We also, in the fall, did 13 billboards. We had 8 weeks with a TikTok influencer who has 58,000 followers. She did one clip a week on us. We did over 300,000 texts and 2 weeks of 30-second ads in 2 cities. Next slide. So what were the results in the fall? Well, on our vote page, which is what the Get Out the Vote activities did, we got, as you can see, a huge number of repeat users. On Gabe Vasquez page, we got, again, a number of repeat users, large number of repeat users, and for the register page, 3,164 repeat users. This means these people are not only coming for the first time to the site, they are going back and looking again. So, of the 40,000 infrequent voters we touched, more than 22,000 voted. That's nearly 56%. This is huge. Now, we can't claim that we did all of this by ourselves. Other groups and certainly the candidate himself were reaching out to these people as well. But it is pretty interesting that 22,000 of those people that we talked to voted. And as a result, Gabe Vasquez won by over 11,000 votes, even though Trump took the district. Next slide. So this It's Okay campaign, the Get Out the Vote, we went after what we called centrist persuadable independents. These are people who are not necessarily going to vote for a Democratic slate. They're going to pick their way through their ballots. And we gave them information about Project 2025, but we did it in a way that was not insulting to them or implied that anything happening on the Republican side was necessarily, if they were following that was necessarily wrong. We just wanted to inform. Next slide. So the It's Okay campaign landing page on the website had 34% of this audience visit it, and 46% of those people voted. That is amazing for people who never heard from us, who probably don't lean our way, and yet they went and voted. Next slide. So both the Get Out the Vote and It's Okay had programmatic advertising as part of their activities. And 0.02% is 0.02% is considered a successful response rate. And I won't read these all to you, but you can see that we just got incredibly many many times higher response rates than were considered successful. And in some cases, the ads were 40 times to 60 times greater than a successful response rate. Next slide. So how do we use data to support our work? I can't go into huge detail today, but it is the basis of everything we do. We use it to select our target audiences. We use it to track campaign metrics and responses. That helps us to understand what's working and what's not. We also can monitor and respond to voter turnout. If we see that that we want to get voters out early, we can monitor how many of these people are going out and what's actually happening. And of course, we use it to inform our future campaigns. We're not going to repeat what didn't work, but we are going to use what did. Next slide. So did we move the dial in 22 and 2024? Well, we ran two similar campaigns in both of those years. And in 2022, Gabe won by a whisker, just 1,346 votes. And we reached out to 40,000 people in 2022, and almost 7,000 of those went to the polls and voted. In 2024, as I just said, Gabe won by just a whisker over 11,000 votes, much better. And of the 40,000 people we touched, 22,000 voted. Next slide. And so now I'd like to take a moment and I'd like to introduce Marty Burt, who is our treasurer, and she's going to tell us a little bit about a matching gift we have.
Good evening, and welcome, and thank you for everything that you give. As you've heard, we're putting it to very good use. We do have a budget for this year. It's about half of what we did last year. It's about $100,000, but we may need more than that because, as you'll hear in a little bit, a lot of other states are very interested in our model and how we've done what we're doing. And if enough of them end up seriously wanting to work with us, we're going to need to hire a coordinator. But in the meantime, we're making progress, in part thanks to a challenge grant from Margot Dickel-Miller and Nancy Katz, who are going to tell you why they have chosen to give Blue CD2 $25,000 as a matching and a challenge grant.
And, you know, we did do fun things, but I know. Hi, I'm Margot, and I, in March of this year, I spent about a week with Marty Burt in Palm Springs. And, you know, we did do fun things, but I noticed that Marty was spending a lot of time looking at her email, talking on the phone, you know, being involved in Zoom meetings. And it was about this thing called Blue CD2. Nancy already knew more about this than I did, but I talked with Marty and you know, asked her about what this thing was. And I was so impressed because, first of all, as was so well demonstrated today, this group of people, this organization, is using data to help them determine next steps. And as a former academic, that appeals to me very much. As someone involved in a nonprofit organization, I really like the fact that you talk about impact, that, you know, what has happened? Where does our money go? How do we make a difference? And then finally, I love that you have a model and that you're willing to share it with other people. So after I learned about Blue CD2, I felt like this really was an organization that I certainly would be willing to support. Nancy?
Well, Margot and I are lifelong Democrats and been very involved in politics really all our lives. And we want to see Democrats in power. And the Republicans only have a majority in Congress by 3 or 4. I don't know the exact number, but just flipping one district makes a huge difference. And if you could do it in multiple districts across the country, and really in a very cost-effective and thoughtful way, I mean, we could take back the House, and that's something we need to do. And so Margot and I decided that we needed to jumpstart things, because Marty was very excited about moving into other states and talking with other organizations, and that's going to take money. So that's why we made the decision to invest in Blue CD2.
Okay, thank you very much. I do want to add that there's a little sweetener in the fundraising thing for tonight, and that is whoever gives the most money tonight, there is a weekend in Santa Fe at a casita in Santa Fe waiting for you. So we hope that you will be generous. And now Kim will tell us where we are.
Well, Marty, I'm very excited to say that we have now raised $1,000 already. And if you love what we do and want to help make a difference, please donate. I'm putting the link in the chat.
Great. Thank you so much. That's a great way to start out this evening. And we'll also be looking at what was contributed that you saw from the sponsor page and the contributions that we'll add toward the end of this evening. And what is happening right now is that I'm supposed to be introducing the speakers, and Lucian and Antonia are not on the call. So we're going to do a couple of things and make sure that you all get really good content and information as we're moving forward, so that you can see how important this organization is, not only locally to Congressional District 2 in New Mexico, but into the United States and flipping those districts that are red to blue. And just a couple of things before I ask questions of Rochelle and Constance, which we would be asking Lucian and Antonia, but they are not on the call. Whenever I see these slides that you all have just seen in this amazing show, what really hits me is PTSD. We were over 2023 and 2024 through these postcards, through the messaging, telling voters exactly the horror, the chaos, the cruelty, the lack of civility that would happen if Trump were elected and if the House went red. And it did. And this is what's happening to us. And this is a very fateful day as that bill is moving its way through to being passed. So it does create a lot of angst, a lot of anxiety, and we need to keep looking toward each other together, us, US, the people, to reframe and reignite the work that we do. So in asking the questions that I would ask Lucian and Antonia, I'd like to first ask Rochelle, and kind of looking at the context and then the question. So in terms of politics and culture, a recent New York Times op-ed reminded us of Andrew Breitbart's theory. Politics is downwind of culture. Republicans understand this and use it to their advantage. Democrats, however, assume that policy and ideas are the main things that move people. But policy and ideas, it seems, really bores many Americans, and the media won't cover them because they don't result in clicks. In the age of Trump, the media is addicted to the clicks and really the angst that Trump's chaos drives. So you could say politics is not just downwind of a culture, it has become our culture. So to Rochelle, how do Democrats change so their messaging matches this cultural moment? And what new framing do we need to be able to match this moment, to keep our integrity and to keep what's true to our values while making sure that our message gets heard loud and clear with all of the clicks that are happening? Rochelle?
Well, I just want to say first that we are looking for our panelists.
Yes.
And we're hoping to get them on board before, you know, the hour is over. And second, I want to say that I am not a messaging specialist. I've learned a lot from Sally, who is our messaging chair. She has carefully studied the race class narrative and Anat Schenker-Osorio and other messaging strategists, including Antonia. So I'm going to just be speaking off the cuff here, and my response to that is this is the, you know, we are in the solution. We are making the solution, and duplicating what we have done in multiple districts could help build this bigger megaphone that we need in order. I mean, the Republicans have just basically whipped us for the last 40 years in terms of communicating with the people that they want to manipulate or engage. And I think manipulate is probably the better word there. And what is happening now, happily, is that as the old institutions and structures break down, like how many of us still subscribe to the New York Times and the Washington Post? I have to say, I don't anymore, because I don't find them as trustworthy as they were. I find them to be mouthpieces of often of disinformation or spin that is really detrimental to you know, the preservation of democracy. So as those institutions break down, new things are being born, like Blue CD2 and like Courier News, and many there's this upwelling, the Midas Touch group. Substack is just a hotbed of political analysis and opinion. So I'm not sure that that's really answering the question, but
that's great, Rochelle. And again, you know, please contribute. You can see, you know, in the face of our speakers not being here, how nimble we are, how smart we are, how we come to the fore to make a difference. Please partner with us. And Kim has again given you the donate portion because, Rochelle, you have learned so much, and you've brought that mastery that you're learning from Sally and Constance and others around marketing and messaging to answer that question, and it made a difference. Now I want to go to Constance and ask her another messaging question, because that is for sure her forte. And then we'll come back, maybe, you know, we'll even have Marty have you answer a question that we would have asked. But again, remember, please keep contributing. We want to raise $25,000 over this hour so that we can continue this work, have Gabe win a third term, which I don't think has ever been done as a Democrat in CD2. So let's make history and make sure that this also happens, because nobody's won twice like Gabe, so in 40 years. So also let's make sure that we can bring this technology to other states who are craving and asking for it, from Antonia, who has referred us to a number of other states as well. So Constance, now I have you. So another recent New York Times story was about the appeal of the MAHA, the Make America Healthy Again. And just in you answering this question, Constance,
I just want to say that I've just reached Antonia, who just took the time. So she will be joining us shortly.
Okay, great. But in this question, Constance, with MAHA, and I hate that we use MA, whatever the last letters are, and that is something that I think we can stop doing, or calling it a big, beautiful bill, because it isn't. So again, with messaging, the Make America Healthy movement for young women, how do we get out ahead of this with our messaging? So how can we make a difference in having all of us see how unhealthy we are going to be, how sick, how starving? many of our children and women will be and sick.
Well, I
with
think
all
that
this.
the Republicans they've been very clever. They, in the last 10 years or so, have bought up television stations, radio stations, newspapers, such as the Sinclair Publishing Group, which some of you may be familiar with. And they have turned it into a Republican megaphone. They are also past experts at raising people's fears and concerns and playing on those without providing any solutions for those things, which are most of the time not really, they're apocryphal, if you want my opinion. Maha is kind of one of those kind of borderline things where it's a good idea, make America healthy again, but let's not do it with having any vaccines. Let's not do it with letting women have abortions when they need them. Let's not do it by interfering with people's ability to have Medicaid. That all is evidently irrelevant. Making America healthy again has to do with putting on a bonnet and long skirts and going back to being the mother of a family and not being an active person. It's kind of horrifying in my way of viewing it. Now, I personally, although I'm a marketing person, I haven't spent a lot of time paying attention to Maha. I've been more horrified by other things, but Maha is really not at all what it seems to be. Rochelle?
We have a request in the chat to share personal stories, and if we don't have Antonia yet, I'd like to kind of go into our origin story, which is that I was so outraged when my district elected this person, this MAGA extremist, who wanted to take my rights away and the rights of everyone that I love. I come from a family that has served this country in traditional ways, a military family. My father was a combat pilot in World War II in Korea. 2 brothers served in Vietnam. I have a nephew who's a Navy SEAL. I felt like this was the very least I could do to honor their service and to have some impact on this egregious erosion of our democratic institutions. And do we have Antonia on yet?
We do. So
Oh, wonderful.
Thank you so much for sharing, Rochelle. Thank you and Constance for your great answers and creating solutions around reframing. And this perfectly leads us into introducing Antonia, who is here, and we're so glad that she's here. We'll make sure that we put Mountain Standard Time. Whatever happened that has us fool around with these times. So what I'd like to do is to now take Constance and Rochelle off and add Antonia, and I'll be introducing her. While Antonia comes on, I would just like to point out that it costs $8, just $8 versus about $200 in other districts to bring one of these reluctant voters to the polls to vote for Gabe Vasquez. It's incredible. And I don't say this out of hubris, but just for you to know, as a volunteer, my family has contributed over these last few years $8,000. I know I'm responsible for 1,000 votes, and that is something that makes me so proud. So please continue contributing, and also have your Q&As in the Q&A box. And I'll introduce Antonia right now. And let's see, where did she go?
Hi, I'm here, but I can't get my camera to work.
Oh goodness. Okay.
I'm having it here. I am so sorry. I used to live in Arizona, and I could never get.
Oh, I know, that's hard.
Of switching back and forth between Pacific and Mountain Time.
Yes, and what we'll do, Antonia, if we can't get your if we can only get your voice, let's go ahead, Josh, and put on the New Mexico slide of Rochelle's. Just so that we see that beautiful New Mexico Alamogordo slide, I think it is, while Antonia is speaking. And Antonia, we we have your information on the invitation. So thank you so much for your work in reframing and making a difference. You're incredible. I've been reading. I'm a rabid follower of yours, and please let us know what you're thinking about and what you're doing so that we can create solutions in this perilous time.
Okay, well, I thought what I would do is, first of all, I just want to thank you so much for having me here to help celebrate the amazing work that you guys are doing. And I love the theme of this conversation, how language shapes reality and how it can be used to bring us together instead of divide us. So I want to talk about how, language is how we reason. It's not just the packaging for our ideas. It's how we communicate and how we create meaning and how we think. And that, conservatives know this, and that's why they've invested decades and vast sums of money to change the language that we use, to, idealize this rugged individualism and social Darwinism, over empathy and collective responsibility. And, how over the course of 50 years, their language has so dominated this public debate that we have not just lost the language to make the case for the society and government we need to have, but we've lost the language to even think about it. So when I was putting together my training program, I struggled to put into words what we believe, and it sounded weird to me at first. But the more I thought about it, the more it just felt obvious. It was like, yes, of course, this is what we believe. It's like waking up from a dream in which we forgot who we were. So I'm going to share with people a little bit of, this sort of, I think of this as a rough first draft of what we believe, of our values, our economic beliefs, and our beliefs in the role of government. And we need to give people back the words that they need to envision something better. Especially right now when things seem so dark. And, it's very easy to get caught up in visualizing the bad things that could happen or are happening. And I think it's more important than ever that we are able to see what could be. And, when we look at the election in New York with Mamdani, that his relentless focus on the positive, on what we could do if we do together, how powerful that is. And, I just want to note that, he spoke about things from the perspective of these values. Like, we don't need to go out there and just list our values, but we need to talk about everything in terms of these values. So I'm going to just do a quick kind of a rundown of our core values, the things that make us different from conservatives. So first of all, we believe in empathy. We care what happens to other people. We believe that everyone has inherent worth, that we have fundamental rights that we don't have to earn. We just have them because we exist. And we believe in equality, that we can be different and still be worth the same. We celebrate our diversity. The great variety of people and culture is what makes America unique, dynamic, and strong. We believe in interdependence. Since human beings first formed families and tribes, they have depended on each other for survival and success. And we believe in cooperation and shared prosperity, that by working together, we can all succeed. But it's not just mutual self-interest. We believe in community and solidarity. Our fates are intertwined. Like the Musketeer said, all for one and one for all. So we believe in freedom, self-determination, the right to be in the driver's seat of our own lives. We believe in physical liberty, that the right to have authority over your own body is an essential condition of being a free person. We believe in self-government. We choose to have laws to make our society safe and fair, but we're free when we have an equal say in choosing the people who make the laws, and when those laws are applied equally and fairly. We believe in economic fairness, the right to determine the course of our economic lives, to representation in the workplace, and a job you can raise a family on. And we believe in freedom from poverty, illness, violence, and oppression. And we believe in responsibility, that everyone should be held responsible for how their behavior impacts others, and that we should share responsibility for the function of our society as a whole. And we don't believe in the worship of the free market, that nothing matters except the, people's right to, to consume all of the labor of others and the resources of our earth for their own unlimited gain. We do not believe that. We believe that our economic system exists to serve people. That's why we have one, that it couldn't exist without government. We believe that economic growth is driven by workers and wages and by well-being. And we believe that government is us. Like you said, government is how we work together to solve problems, to take care of each other, to make group decisions and take collective action. When people attack government and attack taxes, they are attacking the American people. They're attacking our right to make and carry out decisions about our own society. We use our government to provide public benefits and contribute to our shared prosperity, to invest in ourselves, to plan for our common future, to do big things only government can do. We use it to protect each other. To keep each other safe, to protect each other from risk, to keep us secure, and to take care of each other, to meet each other's essential needs, for things like housing and health, and a secure retirement. So, it's not a sacrifice to pay the dues for what we get from government. We're happy to pay our dues because we get benefits and we use the resources, and we're happy to pay to help others when they need it and to get help when we need it, to pay back our predecessors for the investments that they made and to invest in future generations. And we believe in economic fairness. We believe in using government to protect everyone's rights, to protect our freedom, to protect our civil liberties. So I believe that for decades we have failed to make the case for the society and the government we believe in. And it's not even about politics anymore. It's about whether we will be able to inspire our shared humanity to rise up and save each other as a society and a species. We have to wake each other up. We have to create meaning-making narratives. And I think together, we can talk this shared reality back into existence. Do we have time for me to take questions?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I just want to say that I felt my heart expand as you were going through that list. And I hope that's a list that you can share with us. I need a little direction about when we go to Q&A. Are we ready to do that? And do we have any questions in the...
We don't have any questions right now that I see in Q&A, but let's give people a little bit of time. What we want to do first, Rochelle, is to have you go over some slides as you thank Antonia and with all the support that she's provided. And then Kim will be updating us, and then we'll go into the Q&A.
Okay, and I'm going to try to figure out how to get my camera on.
Okay, great, Antonia. And remember, Q&A, we'd love your questions. They go in the Q&A, and Antonia is here to answer those. And we'll have, a few minutes, 5 minutes, whatever, to do that.
So we as a group just don't take time off. We work all the time, and it's so critically important to be reaching these people all the time, to not just come in 2 weeks or a month before an election and ask them to vote. We have to be in touch with them as much as possible. This is one of the unique things about our group. Here's what we're doing this year. We're planning on 5 postcards, all these other channels that we already talked about. Our first postcard has already gone out. It's this Let's Fix It economic message. We have a landing page for it. It talks about what we can do right now. Even though we're constrained, we can still protest. We can contact our reps. We can register. We can talk to our neighbors. There are always things we can do. This is June through November, and our budget for this is $100,000. And that wonderful gift has given us a great boost on that. And we'll see what we're able to raise tonight to add to that. Let's go to the next slide. These are, we have 3 billboards up already. They're electronic billboards, which makes them very flexible. We can change the message quickly in response to developments. The horror du jour, we have 2 in Las Cruces and 1 in Alamogordo. When these billboards went up, that day, 256 people went to our website to learn more about them. Next slide, please. This is something we're really excited about. So we're defining our model. When we first started, we didn't have, we weren't experienced with these things. We didn't have clear strategies. We had some ideas that we were trying to implement. We didn't have any money. We learned all these things on the fly. And now we have taken this opportunity to articulate each of these components of our strategy. The data, the marketing, the messaging, the fundraising, all these things that we do, how we do them in great detail. We've written a manual about it. It's almost finished. And thanks to Antonia, she has opened the door to the leaders of several other groups in other states, particularly Virginia and Arizona right now. We've also had interest from the other states that are listed here. We're very eager to get this done and get it out, because if we had a group that in each district that was devoted only to that district, think what we could do. We could flip the house. And it would be lovely if we could raise enough to hire a part-time coordinator to help us take our show on the road. Okay, thanks again, Antonia. There you are.
Okay, and I'm just going to give you an update right now. We've raised $2,225 so far. So please partner with us and donate what you can. I'm putting the link in the chat.
Great. Thanks so much, everyone. And now we have our fundraising pause, but we're going to bring Antonia to the front so that we can now see her. And we do have some questions and answer, or we'll answer. Antonia will ask those questions. And let's see. So I'm going to go ahead and look at some of these questions. And Antonia, it's so nice to see you in person. You're as beautiful as your photo and our invitations. Oh my gosh. So yes, your face glows and illuminates the reframing that you support us all in, which is needed each and every day. So one question is Marty, do you want to give me questions, or should I just?
I do want to give you questions. And one of them is about the Democratic Party, which you have worked with, Antonia. And the question is, so how can we get the party, which seems to be waking up, to get better at messaging, basically, but also to potentially use some of the tactics that we have developed, but especially the messaging part. So that's one of them. And you're muted.
Yeah, one thing I want to say is that, you know, I know that people are hearing a lot about the Democratic Party and they're seeing, you know, disarray and blah, blah, blah. But you know what? What I'm seeing in a number of places is that people are trying to change the party and do things that we all know need to be done, like investing more in grassroots organizing, focusing more on things like messaging. And what's happening is there's always going to be people who didn't want things to change and are not happy about it and are calling up their friends in the press and complaining. And so we're hearing, we're seeing an article that's like, oh, Ken Martin, oh, all these people are complaining. And then it says, oh, but he's doing all these things. So first of all, I think we should all be keeping our focus on the change that people are trying to make, and not listen to, there are people who want to sabotage the change. And so we need to not listen to them. We need to ignore them. We need to remind ourselves and everybody that the Democratic Party is the rank and file. It is the people in this room. It is the people who do the work. It is the local committees and the state committees. If somebody is whispering in the ear of Chuck Todd, they're probably not the people who really do the work for the Democratic Party. So it is us. We are the Democratic Party, not them. And we are trying to do the things that we all know that we need to do. And, I'm very happy to see that a lot, resources are being put to states for organizing. I was just up in Minnesota recently, and I did a message training for a whole, normally the regional field staffers are hired in I want to say July or August of an election year. Minnesota has its regional field staff in the office right now. That's like a year ahead of the way when we normally have it. So we are seeing this change happening. And that means there's people who are going to be out there able to reach out to people in communities and do that kind of real organizing that we all know that is needed to be done. And that's, I think, where we can get a lot of the better messaging in, is when we're really having these conversations about what really matters to us and what we believe in, outside of the context of just vote for our guy. You know what I mean? So I think this is all very promising. And I think the other thing that I want to say about the party is that whenever you are dealing with a party organization, whether it's a local committee or state committee, or even a candidate, remind them that it's up to them, that their messaging is their choice. They do not have to wait for permission from anybody to say what they believe. And you can point to people like Mamdani and say, the era of poll-tested messaging is over. Speak from your heart, speak from your values, talk about the better world that we could be living in. Don't worry about making mistakes. Voters will forgive you if they believe that you are authentic and that you care. And I think, you need to help local committees and elected officials have the courage to push back against people who want to force them into a little box of poll-tested messaging. So encourage them, to stand up for themselves and to speak from their heart and say, if you really want to win, authenticity beats packaging anytime. And
Thanks,
so
Antonia.
that.
Thanks. And that leads to a next question from Leora. But I love what you said about, we are the Democrats, and to use whatever is authentic and makes a difference. Like, I love to fundraise. I love asking people for money. So a lot of people aren't comfortable with that. That's what I can do to make a difference. And my postcards, and other people like to protest and, go for the marches and no king and those kinds of things. So everything that we can do can make a difference. And you touched on this at the end of what you said, Antonia. And from Leora, our amazing data volunteer and statistician, etc. Can we use personal stories to motivate voters with the messages that you shared? How do you suggest we get these messages to infrequent voters?
Well, I think one of the things that we do need to do, like I said, we have to talk to people outside of the context of elections. And you guys actually were a lot of the inspiration for me understanding that in, your strategy of developing that trusted messenger status with people, of going out there and giving them useful information they can verify, and reaching out to people who are not active participants. Most people in the political space would write off people who are infrequent voters because they just believe, well, they're not likely to vote. It's not worth my money and my time to reach these people. But you know what? Those are the people that you have the potential to reach. They're not being bombarded with tons of other literature. You can reach them, and you do have to get into I know you guys use like in-app ads and things like that. That's a, you know, a great way to sort of reach people while they're doing other things. You know, like I've always said that if you want to get to the people that are not following the news, you have to kind of get out there in the real world where they will trip over you as they are going about their daily lives.
Mhm.
So, you know, I think for, you know, for organizations that have a lot of volunteers, like literally getting out and knocking on doors or doing visibility, farmers markets, tabling, all of that stuff, I think is super important. And there's even like, I have a strategy that I'm working with a couple of different groups where I'm actually going to be sitting down and working this out with them. Like I've always said that every community has, I think, what you call a circulatory system for information.
Mm.
Like there are some campaigns that I worked on in Southwest Virginia where if you gave a piece of information to somebody at this one gas station, it would reach everybody in the entire community by the end of the next day. But every community has a circulatory system.
Mhm.
Like, you know, my friends in Arizona, when they did the initiative, they tried to defeat the voucher initiative. They were told, oh, you have to spend all this money, you know, you have to raise all this money and spend it on ads. And they were like, we're teachers, we communicate with each other. And they used the teacher network
Oh,
to
good.
get the word out, and they were incredibly effective and spent a tiny fraction of the money they would have otherwise had to spend by tapping into the communication networks that already exist. So,
Mm.
you know, one of the pieces of advice that I would give, it is not easy to reach people who don't pay attention to politics. But if you can figure out how to communicate with people through the ways, you know, that through the information streams that are out there, and that's what a lot of Republicans do. They go into the health, you know, the health networks or the sports or whatever. Those are existing communication systems. So figure out how to sort of inject your knowledge and yourself and build relationships within existing systems rather than trying to kind of airlift info down from the sky, as we often tend to do.
Yeah, and
You
Antonio, that
get
is
to people who are not regular news consumers.
yeah, that is so clever. And it brings us to the last two questions really well. And we have about 2 minutes to answer the last two questions. So before Kim comes on with the last fundraising tally and we complete by 7. So speaking of groups, the MAGA team David has this question. The MAGA team has been able to win over Christians, although their overt messages emphasize hate, greed, and quote unquote survival of the fittest. Recent comments by Elon Musk, were a rant against empathy, a Christian value. Does this point to how well MAGA has used these?
Well, I mean, MAGA is just the latest of, I mean, this is part of the plan that started in 1964.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, there were always efforts of the rich to justify vast accumulation of wealth, but it was really only then, and like kind of leading up to the Reagan era, where they tried to create a moral justification for it. Like they actually, you know, it was like Robert Bork and his antitrust movement that was saying that it's actually morally wrong to stop people from reaching their highest heights of profit seeking. And so they've spent 50 years trying to create a moral justification for essentially selfishness, hyper individualism. And it's only just recently, I think, that it has just become malignant. You know, like it's gotten to the point where they're saying not only, you know, it's not just like, oh, people should be free to pursue, you know, their greatness or their, you know, whatever. They're saying that we don't have any responsibility for each other, that that basically if you aren't exploiting people, then you're just a sucker, you know, like it's the cruelty that I think is new. The religious justification is 40, 50 years old, but the sort of outright cruelty, the taking malicious glee in things like, you know, putting concentration camps in the middle of an alligator swamp.
Right.
That's just horrifying. And I think that even though we believe in the separation of church and state, I think we have been afraid to speak in terms of morals and values because we don't want to be imposing what we think of as our moral beliefs on other people. But you know what? We can have morals and values without imposing our religion. We can have morals and values as human beings, you know, as humanitarians, as people who believe in equality and human decency. And I think we have to learn how not to be afraid to speak in terms of right and wrong. And that is, I think, one of the problems that we've had.
Thank you so much. And we're going over, it's now 7 o'clock, but this points directly to the last question, which I think, you know, can be quick and then we'll complete. So an anonymous attendee said, which of our values, given those horrendous values, cruel values you were just talking about on the MAGA right, which of our values should we emphasize to excite uninformed, uncommitted voters?
I think one of the things that, like, when you look at the world they're promising people, it is an ugly dog eat dog world. And yeah, they're enticing people with this idea of, like, you can be a winner in a world of losers, and, you know, you can be the winner and step on the losers. But that comes with fear and uncertainty and a life of constantly fighting to stay on top. I mean, you look at Trump, thinks he's on top of the world, but he lives in fear of everything and isolation and insecurity. And I think that we offer people a world that just seems like a better place to be, you know, like it's like where we are all looking out for each other, where nobody has to fail, you know. And I think that that value of being all in it together, you know, and you can point to things like, what is the Andor TV show where you know, all these people who are fighting the Star Wars empire. You know, we can tell people who are living in insecurity, like, if you think you live in a world where the only way you're ever going to be able to support your family is to basically hit the economic lottery and become an entrepreneur or become a finance bro. Like, some people embrace that because they think that's the only option. But even that's risky and insecure. And we can offer them a vision of a world where they are not alone and they don't have to always be alone. And I think that is very appealing. But that's not, you know, that's something we have to really be offering people, because it is a kinder and more decent and more secure world we're offering people.
Right.
We have to talk about that and not just what's wrong with what they're doing.
Right. Thank you. That perfect reframing, just like the article I just read that you wrote, is so much what we need to keep talking about and being together. And what we're going to do now is have Kim just give us a quick update, and she just put out into the chat what the link to contribute and make a difference with us tonight, and to keep us moving toward the $25,000 match. So Kim, before we complete.
Of course. So we have raised $4,275 tonight, and now we're going to add in the sponsor donation amount of $11,860 for a grand total of $16,125. So thank you so much for participating tonight and for being so generous with your donations. And I put the link in the chat one last time.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Kim. And so there's only 9,000 to go to match that 25,000. And we'll let you know after this event, and the recording will come out, and you'll be able to see also, we'll tell you who won the big prize for that great cabin and time near Santa Fe. So in thanks, I want to thank all of you for contributing generously, listening with intention to act and make a difference, volunteering to write postcards and make calls, and participate in ways with us that change our political landscape. Thanks again to Antonia. Thank you for being on. That made such a difference. Who supports us every day in our endeavors to reframe and reignite the best of America. Thanks to all of these Blue CD2 volunteers who you see in our little Brady Bunch boxes. They are experts in messaging, data, results, marketing, fundraising, and as volunteers all throughout our history, we are making a difference so that we get a bigger bang for our contribution buck. So again, all of these folks make it possible and represent the true spirit of being an American and loving our country and people. Happy 4th of July. Let's take it back as we are the people. We are the government. The government is us, US. Good night, and we appreciate your generosity and